second round.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chopra, we are in a midst of a full-blown student debt crisis, with 43 million of our fellow citizens owing $1.5 trillion in student loan debt. And instead of helping provide relief to those borrowers by regulating a student loan market plagued by harmful practices, our country's consumer watchdog was asleep at the wheel, in my perspective, for the last 4 years. I think that student loan debt shakes the very foundations of the American middle class. I can refinance anything in my life except student loan debt. If I was able to do so, for example, there'd be great opportunities to, buy my first home, be an entrepreneur, start a business, have enormous economic ripple effect for the individual as well as for the society as a whole. So, as the lead consumer watchdog, does the CFPB have authority to oversee and supervise that $1.5 trillion worth of consumer debt, including debt owed to the federal government?
Yes, my understanding, the existing law and implementing regulations, those entities, servicers, debt collectors, they are covered as consumer financial products and services.
And do you believe the extent of the current student debt crisis calls for the use of the Bureau's full slate of authorities to ensure that federal and private student loan services are complying with consumer financial protection laws?
Yeah, so Senator, student loans used to actually be more of the exception, and now they're the norm. While I was at the Bureau the last time, the agency reported that student loans had crossed the $1 trillion mark. It's now $1.7 trillion. There was years where more than 1 million Americans were defaulting, even when they had a legal entitlement to loan modifications and income-driven repayment. This has to be something. It's one of the biggest consumer credit markets in our country after mortgages, and we have to make sure that the law is being followed. And I have seen some real improvements over the last decade in the activities of some of these firms, and I hope that that continues, and I hope that there are high levels of compliance with the laws that Congress has passed.
Well, thank you for that. During your tenure as the student loan ombudsman, the CFPB returned over $750 million to wrong student borrowers. That's the type of work I'd like to see the CFPB return to. And then finally, I want to follow up on Senator Warnock's questions to you about the disproportionate impact student loans have on minority communities. I, like him, who grew up poor in a tenement in Union City, first in my family to go to college, would have never done so without the, Pell's, Perkins, and work study. So I'm very familiar and firsthand knowledge of the consequences. But should the Bureau examine whether student loan servicers are violating civil rights laws or engage in other unlawful conduct that disproportionately hurts minority student loan borrowers?
So many of those firms are subject, I believe all of them, to the Equal Credit Opportunity Act. We have seen that it is critical to ensure that there is appropriate enforcement of that law, not just on the origination side, but also as established guidance says, it applies to the other parts of the consumer credit life cycle. We can't really make a mistake when it comes to this. Ensuring that our anti-discrimination laws are adhered to is important for the goals that the Congress has set out in those laws.
Well, thank you. I look forward to supporting your nomination to your leadership of the agency upon confirmation. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.